Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the desk. We have a short break before we get back to the action for Game 2. In that break, got to break down all the action of Game 1. And Nova, I want to get right into it. Let's start with draft. One of the big questions that we had for No Team, it was, 1, what's Qualifier going to play in the bot lane? 2, does No Team look different? Does this affect their gameplay with a sub in the bot lane? And I think No Team resoundingly answered both those questions with everything is going to be just fine.
I was muted. Yeah, for this kind of no team thing, I think it was definitely a showing that it doesn't matter if we drop one of our players, we're still very consistent across the board, right? I think Qualifier filled his role. He knew, like, I'm just going to pick Ziggs. I'm going to be kind of a force in the ball lane. I'll neutralize as much as I need to. And then you guys just make stuff happen on the other side of the map, and I will be a Ziggs late game that just kind of demolishes everything, right? And so it's really exciting. I think, like, being innovative in draft, the way that no team did, was definitely paying off for them. I mean, we see the Olaf and the Soraka be picked before in Academy and also in LCS. And it definitely shows why, right? One of the things we talked about was no team kind of being this scaling late game team comp, but then they came out today and said, no, we're going to be way more active in the early game. We're going to pick this Olaf Soraka. We're going to, just run down whoever shows into mid, and then later parts of the game, nobody can stop us.
And, I mean, props to No Team. That is exactly what happened. I want to start diving into some of these replays. Let's see. Olaf Soraka chasing people down mid. It's almost like we saw that in the game, Nova. As,
yeah.
This first replay is going to be Griffin getting those axes swinging and cutting right through the side of Ginger Turmeric.
We saw this happen a few times, but this is the first of many. We get the first blood as well. A little bit late into this game, but it's completely all right for Griffin as he just runs DNA down. City Witty tries desperately to save his ally, but it's late enough into the game where Blaze has ultimate and a few points in that heal as well. And Griffin just runs straight through them and back to what he was doing, back to clearing some camps.
Yeah, there's not a lot of, analysis to do there. It was just pretty much swing those axes, cut right through the side of Ginger Turmeric. But I think this is a point when talking about Griffin. This kid's 15, too. We just saw Sniper, of course, 100 Thieves, they dropped in the last event. But, Nova, you worked with Radiance. Your top side was 17, 16, 15 across the board. Griffin, what he's doing as a 15-year-old and some of the growth that he's shown early on in his career, it's been crazy. And he's so good at these farming junglers and making sure that he's fed, making sure he's making a big impact on the map. It's been really fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a reason why when he wasn't 15 and he wasn't able to be in PG, the teams were still messaging him, just being like, "Hey, like, are you able to play?" Right? Like, it's just very obvious
Go
that
for scrims.
when you can, yeah, exactly, right. When you can be like that young and you're also just reaching like high challenger, like that's a statement by itself. But then being able to say like, yeah, I'm also young, I'm also challenger, but at the same time I can also compete against the best. That's a different statement. And I think Griffin coming out in the amateur scene, I think it's really great for him because he's doing exactly that. So I think any team really, if they're going to be watching any, prospect, anything in the scene, like you have to be keeping your eyes not just on Griffin, but pretty much like the entire team of No Team, right?
Yeah, I mean, he is not the only young talent on the board here. And I know hopping into this next replay, Nova, this is where Griffin takes down DNA again in the mid lane. But also this time around, we see Qualifier cashing in on the Ziggs bot.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what I mentioned before, right? Qualifier is just being like, I'm just going to neutralize bot. Like, whoever they send to me, like, I'm just going to be able to get out. And then you guys just make your stuff happen towards the mid lane, right? And that's just exactly what happens. It was kind of unfortunate because last time DNA maybe had City Witty there to kind of bail him out, and not even that worked, right? But this time he's all alone. I think City was just like, you're doomed no matter what I do. So, yeah, it's exactly kind of seeing what happens. Like that team, when you run a team comp like that and you're playing up against a brand and a Nudier, like you're just going to be way more active than them in the early game. And they did exactly that. It was really great.
Cashing in on that draft, playing towards the strats they wanted to. Always really good to see out of any team in amateur, especially No Team, who, and once again, these guys, they don't have an org. This is the second time that they topped their group going into the second PG qualifier. Now they're looking to get the top 4. Smacks, as this next replay runs, I know that we have to start talking about the next game and some of the adjustments, but really, we cannot stop giving enough praise to No Team and what they showed us in this game.
Griffin's really just the pitcher of this game. He just delivered 3 heaters to DNA, and he's completely struck out in 3 balls. And Qualifier is there again. It's deja vu from the last play. Griffin comes in, mows down the brand, and Qualifier is here to pick up the pieces and take out that turret. full plates attached on both of those outer ones as well, not to mention the inner. Game completely over from there. We don't have to talk about the rest of that, but yeah, this early game just completely devastating from No Team. A lot off of Griffin, as per usual, really. And you can see that in the way that they draft as well. The Soraka mid lane. I mean, it takes a lot of confidence in your jungler to pull that out.
Yeah. And going into this next game, we do have a side swap. So it is going to be Ginger Turmeric taking the red side this time around. And Nova, as a coach, do or die game. What are some of the adjustments that you want to see now made out of Ginger Turmeric? Because that first draft really didn't seem like they got the best of that one, given what No Team threw at them.
Most definitely. I mean, I think the one thing to kind of keep in mind is that with Ginger Turmeric, you really can't count them out. The organization itself might be new, but the players themselves aren't. We've seen DNA before, we've seen City Witty before. So as long as they're really getting their draft together, which I'm sure Argentum Sky is really going to be able to do that, especially being on the red side, you have kind of more of an advantage with that counter pick, which maybe is going to come in handy for them. Especially with DNA being in the mid lane, where he just kind of plays these champions that people don't really expect, right? We saw the Anivia banned out, and I really wonder how many times that's been banned. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So if they're able to use that to their advantage, I think that this can maybe go to a Game 3 series. I know that I said it was a 2-0 No Team, but definitely just really the big overwhelming theme is don't count them out just yet.
Smacks, you had the one game going the Ginger Turmeric. What do you want to see in this next draft?
I want to see Gwen. Where's Gwen gone? I mean,
On the ban list, man.
Well, the thing about Ginger Turmeric is that you have to ban Tristana, Callista, and Syndra against this team. So if they leave up the Gwen, then you can take that one for yourself. I want to see that. That's exactly what I want to see.
Okay. Might be what we're going to see diving into this next one. Now, of course, if you want to join the conversation before we dive into our second game, you can using the hashtag WeAreUnified. Tweet at us, and your tweet could show up on twitch.tv/academy. Get in the conversation. Do you want to see Gwen? Is Gwen immune? Maybe not. We'll see. And take us through all the action for Game 2. We'll see if Ginger Turmeric can stay alive and push us to a Game 3 yet again on twitch.tv/academy. But let's leave it to Travesty and Rebel Fox. Take us through all the action. See what happens.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, we're ready to see exactly what happens. No Team commanding game number 1 victory. Seeing how Ginger responds in game number 2. Very excited to see what the answer may be.
Yeah, it's a matter of, that first game was a very, very hefty initial swing from No Team, right? They were taking no chances. They were taking no time. They weren't playing a game that Ginger Turmeric was willing to play. They just said, we are going to hit you, and we're going to hit you hard fast. And now Ginger Turmeric, now with the side swap, hopefully they're going to be able to come up with some kind of response to it, because as of last game, they weren't quite able to do so. Biggest thing, I think they need to slow down the game. I think this team is much more comfortable when you get out of the early game. I know City Witty had some okay performances recently on Hecarim when they were able to qualify for this against the side of EGP. But honestly, I think this team's early game is one of the weaker points for them. And so they need to get away from that early game just as fast as possible. And so whatever you need to do to make sure that the early game is not capitalized on, make sure to do it and take this game late, because that's the best option you're going to have into this No Team here.
I mean, they have to figure out a way to decelerate what No Team did in the last game, right? They took complete control of it. The desk talked about the fact they moved the Ziggs around. You and me were highlighting it inside the game. All the outer towers dropped down before plates could even come off. You got to keep your eye on that. So GTC, I mean, No Team, they have the options for themselves. Ziggs on the ban list.
Makes sense. It's just still a lot going over. I can understand what happened after last game. And the thing is, I wonder how impactful this is going to be, because obviously Qualifier is going to get his hands on the Jinx, but you have to think that he's more practiced on these Ziggs than he is the Jinx most of the time. The Zeri is not available either. They made sure not to give him that, so the comfort isn't there. But if I had to guess, of the 3, which one he is most likely to not have the same kind of performance on, the Jinx is probably at the highest of that level. And now, to me, it's what is the response? Again, Xayah is something that I know has popped up in other leagues, whether or not Lagrange is actually going to be able to take that, especially if it's paired with Rakan. This is something I wanted to see, which is actually the center pick for Duo King. I think Duo King is an amazing center player. I was surprised we didn't see it in game number 1. I know maybe there's some decisions about counter picks and what the Morgana was going to be able to do, but in a game like this, I much prefer to see what the Senna is. Duo King actually has some pretty cool stats. He's one of the #1 damage supports because he plays a lot of this stuff. One of the biggest ones is he's got a very high damage share per gold share, which means that like when it comes to how much damage he's putting out compared to how much gold he's putting out, he's over 1, and he's the highest support in all of what's happened so far inside of the qualifiers. And so that is why I love seeing Duo King on these high damage carries, because yeah, he's not getting gold, he's playing these more often, but this is his comfort, right? Like he's intending to play very high damage characters.
Yeah, he redefines aggression, but look at that. The easiest selection again. Run it back, Griffin and Blaze. No mercy for anyone here. Soraka, Olaf.
The biggest forehead thing that would come about, though, is whether or not you would have, like, Olaf go into, like, the Scion, and whether or not you'd have Soraka flex down into the bottom lane, and out of nowhere, it's no longer your mid-jungle combination, and you just bamboozled them into thinking that was going to be the case. But it doesn't have to be, because Griffin and Blaze have shown their propensity to play this at an extremely high level and dominate teams with it, which I think is really good. Here, City, what he opts for, it's the Kindred that actually gets selected as the potential response. It's something that I think is better at attacking Olaf in the earlier phases. It's something that can get more aggressive, but you desperately need mid-prio in order to make it happen. You do not want to be on the receiving end of an Olaf versus Kindred matchup if they land the first axe and you have no way out of that situation. You are never going to be able to do anything against what Olaf brings, especially if you start throwing the Soraka into the mix.
It's also a champion you don't really see unless you have a certain level of mastery on it. And Citywitty is one of those players that does know how to play Kindred, knows how to pilot it around. But like you said, you need that mid priority. I'm keeping my eye out on these bans because they're going to pinch Anivia, of course. Zillion taken away as well. I wonder what they grab for themselves next here. The Morgana is still available if they want to run back that Senna Morgana that we saw in the clips before the game started.
Yeah, my thought was what kind of mages can they actually run into the bottom lane alongside the Senna if they need to, just to try to match outright what the Jinx is going to be able to do in terms of wave clear, because if they've got the pushing power down there, they're going to be able to do quite a bit. This would be interesting as a potential flex down into bottom lane alongside the Senna, because it would be something that can, again, if you happen to pick a melee champion here for Jashuka, like if you were to pick Nautilus here, for example, you would get absolutely clobbered by the double melee. Tahm Kench is also a champion that could have that problem as well. So I'm a little wary about picking a melee support here for the side of Jashuka. I'm a little bit terrified of that if they decide to flex Brand into bot lane, or even if they decide that DNA is taking the Brand into bot lane and Legrain takes something mid. Thresh is still punishable, but it's ranged, so it's not as easy. But again, this is still not bad for Brand if they really wanted to make that swap happen. And it's something that, again, it matches that mage portfolio that Legrain had played previously. You throw it in with a Senna, you could have a bunch of pushing power, you have a bunch of trading potential, and you can fight all the time on the bottom side if you wants to in an attempt to really push something against Qualifier and Jashuka's combination there.
I'm really worried if this Brand does go mid though, because we saw that it will push, but we did see it will also be abused by an Olaf gang. It's not a very mobile champion, so I'm a little bit worried about it. Mordekaiser locked in as the last pick for Chagrin, so picking up the beefy man with the giant mace over in the top side of the map. This is going to answer a lot of questions. Where is this Brand going?
Yeah, it's a good question. More importantly, I want to focus just on Mordekaiser really quickly, because the pick is valuable for a number of reasons. First off, you can remove anybody if you want to. This is the most interesting pick to come through from the side of Ginger Turmeric, because now it's a question of, is it Scion mid lane? And I'm thinking that's where we actually ended up, which means that we do have the Brand on the bottom side, which is of interest now. The Mordekaiser doesn't get as much value into the gangplank because you have barrels, you have wave clear, you have the W to get yourself out of bad situations. But eventually you take a Scion out of a fight, you take a Kindred out of the ultimate and put it in somewhere else. See, you are talking about how the Brand got punished in the previous game in the mid lane and how bad it could be if Griffin just decides to continue pounding mid lane McGanks. And while I do think that the Scion and the Senna combination is more consistent across all bot lanes, I really honestly think that you should be putting the Brand down there. So I'm really hoping that DNA ends up on the bottom side with the Brand pick, and it's more of a champion pool thing than it is actually like them deciding the Scion's going bot lane. I don't think you can push your advantage nearly much on bottom or in mid lane with the champions set the way they are right this second.
Yeah, this feels a little bit awkward if it does go through, because the punishment that we did see in game number 1, we did see the bright spots. We did see, like you were talking about, priority for the Kindred is needed, so that way the Kindred can get to the marks, have priority moving around the map. And we did see Brand is successful at punishing that aspect. Soraka doesn't shove. But then we see the other option of like, yeah, but Griffin likes mid lane when there's a Soraka there. They heal him up, right? It is a very curious scenario to see. My eyes also going over to Existence. We hyped up this top lane a bit, talking about how Dragoon and Existence both want to be enabled inside the top lane. These are two champions that if they get to start going, if they are able to hit that gas pedal, it's hard to decelerate them.
Yeah, it's a matter of like, in this one, Existence goes for comfort and goes for something carry-oriented. The barrels are going to be hard to recover from, because even if you're the Soraka and you have like 1,000 damage heal, you can get like 1,800 damage crits coming out of the barrels from the Gangplank onto your Jinx and your Olaf and, you know, your Mordekaiser, depending on who builds armor, who doesn't. And you can't really recover from that, right? Like, you can drop a wish once, but then a second barrel chain comes in and all of a sudden things are actually a little bit ruined. You throw an ultimate in as the Gangplank, you could do quite a bit in the later stages. So once again, it's a more scaling composition, more teamfight oriented composition from Ginger Turmeric. And their lanes are the things that are most questionable to me, just because, again, the brand didn't work out in the previous game. It was kind of punished, not by the Soraka, but much, much more so by the Olaf's control. And bottom lane, I don't think you have the same ability of trading with this, with the Senna and the Scion down there. So I'm wondering if they make a swap. They do have that cool interaction where if you E a minion that's got the Senna W on it and then it dies or something like that, then it traps around it. Yeah, the little zillion kind of counter as well. That kind of thing. It's available, but ultimately it's another game where it feels like Griffin has the ability to completely take over everything before anything gets off the ground for the side of Ginger Turmeric.
Yeah, I feel like our eyes yet again get set upon this young player who's coming in here on this team and is looking to just continue to make a name for themselves. And I gotta give credit where it's due. This squad in game number one, you and me both outside of the game, you and me have been talking all day about like what some of our concerns that we've had looking at both squads. And I know one of the big things that we aired was consistency. We wanted to see consistency from this squad, see them get a lead and actually carry it through. Game one gave us that. I want to see game two, see them do the same, and I feel like Griffin's the player to watch for it.
We'll see if City Witty has anything to say about this. It appears as though we are ending up with a Scion on the bottom side of the map, and DNA is going back mid lane. Yep. So we'll see whether or not DNA has anything to say about what happened in the previous game, whether or not the stylistic differences come through, and he's able to not get ganked or punished nearly as hard by Griffin. The one thing they do have, I guess, they have Lagrange on Scion. That's something tanky to work with, right? City Witty on the Kindred is also of interest because, again, it's something that if you want to, if you've got a good pair with it, it can take the 2-on-2 up against the Olaf. Not to this extent, definitely not to the point where Blaze is going to be in the back pocket. You're never going to be able to win that one, almost certainly. But City Witty has the ability to kind of zone, be able to pull. You pull enough runes, you got enough damage, you could try to take some congestion in a number of different places. That ultimate is valuable in some circumstances. You know, an Olaf goes into Ragnarok or something like that, you burst him down. If he's not in Ragnarok, you can pop your ultimate, try to drop him down a fair amount of health. Or throw some CC in. There's a number of things that you can expect in places all over the place. But again, I'm still a little lost as to what Ginger Turmeric is intending to do if they aren't just going to try to stall this game immediately from the get-go.
Mid-game has been a strength of Ginger, and they've shown that time and time again. We've seen them play. We've seen them have these moments where we're like, okay, early game, they're not going to really do that much. Watching City Witty on this Kindred is another thing. Like I said, City Witty is one of those players that we do have inside of this tournament that can pilot this champion and has shown it to great success in the past in previous performances that we've seen from them. One of two major Kindred players that I can think of off the top of my head. I feel like it's still a hard matchup. Once you start seeing those stacks and stuff like that, if this Olaf starts getting rolling, Kindred's not a good champion at playing from behind.
Maybe it's a situation where, like, this is such a powerful mid-jungle duo, and you're never going to be able to beat it with most things. So it's like, this is just comfort for City Witty, where it's like, this is the thing that he's going to feel the best about taking into this combination, because you're not really going to find a way to contest it to any extent. I do suppose that if you put up an ultimate and you do get Soraka and Olaf to jump inside of it in an attempt to punish you, that's a great place for DNA to be able to throw AoE damage with the ultimate and the W. So again, I love the fish in a barrel analogy for what happens with a Kindred ultimate, but this time it works in reverse, because it's not the Kindred getting punished, it's instead the other team finally getting punished, which is not always the way that things go. one way or another, we're actually seeing both junglers. It's a full clear coming out from Olaf. He's going to be on his final camp right here. City Witty's in the same position, has the Raptors looking maybe towards the Krugs, more likely going to be looking for the first mark take, one way or another. Although push on bottom side goes to the side of no team, and DNA had backed in mid lane, so DNA might be there for the support of the take of the Scuttle Crab, but bottom side is not going to be able to support. They do have existence with push, so hopefully it's a top side crab, and it is. The RNG got to help out City Witty a little bit.
I feel like that's like the one thing that every single Kindred preys on is if it will come their way. A nice little trade in the bot lane, Lagrange not appreciating that whatsoever. Olaf looking to get inside of the bottom half of the jungle here, not going to be able to find his target as he said, hey, Kindred, luck paid out, paid dividends for them. As we do see the first recall come out from Olaf.
Existence is really into Dragoon in this game. You can see how much health has actually been taken off the Mordekaiser substantially. And we're not even out of corrupting potion charges and no biscuits either. What a pull from Shuka.
Trying to lay in the damage on the Duo King. Duo King had his escape path cut off as well. Beautiful trades coming in between these two in the bot lane.
Yeah, it was a nice pull, but unfortunately, because of the Q and also the fleet footwork, it means that Duo King traded back enough health. Now play onto Dragoon. Maybe they're going to try to make some aggression happen. City Witty's here, but here's Griffin, who's just going to help push out the wave.
And City Witty was looking for a possible bait, wanted Dragoon to go in, but didn't want Griffin there to support it. Griffin also used Ghost on the play, DNA over here on the side, and I love this from Ginger. They're looking to try and punish Griffin and not letting him have free reign.
Also, great little read by Griffin, actually, because he saw that the ward was completely fresh, and so he's like, there's nowhere that this champion could be except for right in front of me. Actually, City Witty does get the camp, but now Blaze is here.
He's silenced. He can't get out. He's in a troublesome spot. The bananas are hitting him hard. Dragoon trying to trade a kill back. First blood going over to DNA, and now Dragoon is stuck between a rock and a rough place here as City Witty finds a kill. 2 kills to Ginger, and this is exactly the breath they needed.
Yeah, Ginger Turmeric, actually, they're showing up really heavily right here, off the back of the fact that DNA had mid push. She was the first one into the top side compared to Blaze, and it's not until Blaze gets there that Griffin is just able to basically 1v3 situations like that. And so, because of how long it took Blaze to get there, the fight was effectively already lost. Also, this isn't a Moonstone Soraka, this isn't like a healing advanced Soraka, anything like that. It is just a very early, only Doran's Ring Soraka that doesn't have that same kind of healing capability that you would in the later stages of the game. So Griffin, it is actually Ginger Turmeric who jumped their timer, and usually they're the ones that are passive at the beginning of the game, making the aggressive move. Exactly what you need to see. If Ginger Turmeric are going to want to play for late game, like that, it's fine to be there and sit, but if you can get to your late game by climbing there faster, by making these aggressive plays, you're going to want that all the more.
Race to DNA too, right? Taking advantage, took note of, hey, the Brand versus Soraka matchup. I'll run it back, and I know what my strengths are. I can shove the wave and get an early roam and make that play for themselves. Blaze teleports back over into the mid lane, but Senna and Kindred go and secure the first dragon of the game.
This is the fight back that is necessary from the side of Ginger Turmeric. You're getting free souls for center on the bottom side. You're getting this tanky Scion up and going. You got City Witty on a first kill. Nothing has been punished, but yeah, Griffin is going to be able to land the first axe on the City Witty. Second one comes through. DNA is here.
Isn't there yet. They try to make a play happen, but the Thresh is not able to make the death sentence work just yet. The fire is ticking away. Jisuke does find himself dropping. Mordekaiser's coming around the bend. DNA will find friendship from Lagrange, and they will both be able to survive, but advantage still going over to Ginger Turmeric. Duo King, 5Fire, they're looking to tango. Minigun out from 5Fire, trying to lay in some good damage, but Duo King expertly using the minion wave to try and buy some time, trade some damage, get the heals. 5Fire trying to get the 1v1 outplay, but he will find himself dropping. Lagrange secures the kill.
This is like limit testing from the side of no team that just doesn't need to happen. First off, around top side where Griffin, he goes in for a Raptor camp and has 2 members behind him, but they're so far behind him that the fight doesn't actually develop the way they want to. And again, Blaze is not there to be the pocket healer for the Olaf the way that they were in the previous game. That setup got rushed a little bit too much, now twice in a row, and the punishment is there onto the mid-jungle combination. And then in the bottom side, that was just a straight-up vibe check from 5Fire. I don't know how else to describe it. And while the trading went back and forth, this vision, unfortunately, did end up costing Firefire because he didn't drop it behind the alcove. It meant that Duo King got some free auto attacks once he dropped his in his brush, and Lagrange just picks up the kill off the back of a W. I bet Duo King's a little mad about that because he's the one that did all the heavy lifting there. But it doesn't matter. Yeah, he put in all the work, but it doesn't matter in the end because the kill still goes over to the side of Ginger Turmeric, who they're sitting at a much better position than what they had in the previous game by a significant margin.
Yeah, a little bit of greed equals speed. Mantra coming into play, and Duo King, I mean, you gotta highlight him. You talked about it already at length, Rebel. This is a champion that Duo King has put in the numbers on, and we got to see it in a display. 1v1 with an AD carry playing the Senna. Takes the matchup in that. And
no, hold on. You say AD carry? He's literally playing an AD carry.
Yeah, no. He has a support item. What are you talking about?
Okay, that's fair. That is what makes him a support, I suppose. Okay, push on bottom side. Now it's going to be Griffin who's actually putting up quite a bit into, the bottom side here, which I think is fair. Trying to make sure your Jinx is going to get ahead. This is one of your team fighting conditions. Nice pull from Jashuka once again. But the Scion is so healthy, it doesn't matter. Like, he did get outtrained, but yeah, he's probably dead. DNA's
you brought him into a Lantern, but you're just going to catch a Fireball. DNA, killing spree. Fire is next. As Flash can use it, will escape, but Dawn will chase them. Lots of damage being placed forward. The Super Mega Death Rocket doesn't catch DNA. Blaze trying to see if he can finish off the kill. And it's a tragedy in front of our eyes.
Why are we limit testing, though, team? I don't understand. This is like the third time now that Griffin has just been like, I'm going for it, and just goes into multiple members who put him through a meat grinder. I'm so lost as to how they think that's going to work. There's no way they can honestly look at that situation and go, hey, this is actually going to work out. He's so far ahead of Blaze. He doesn't have the support of anything but the Jinx Rocket. Even if they trade one kill back, it's probably not worth him just running in there and just throwing the life away in a 1-for-1 trade against anybody on the other team. And now Ginger Turmeric, they've pulled this massive advantage. They're up 5.5k at the beginning of the game. Exactly the opposite of what we saw from the past game with no team, where they weren't there. They were the ones that kind of took over the entire map. Now Ginger Turmeric, they've got the goal to be able to do so.
Rebel, you remember the concerns that we talked about today about no team, and how sometimes they just do stuff that we don't agree with. We're seeing that again. We got a slight glimpse of something hopeful, but now Griffin caught out of position yet again. City Witty grabs another kill, is sitting at 5 stacks currently on the Kindred. 10
stacks.
Minutes in.
There's the 6th. The wolf cap is going to lead to the next one. The mid-jungle combination has not worked out at all. It's been mostly City Weedy getting into the phase of Griffin very quickly in this game, alongside DNA using a lot of that early wave clear to really do all the damage that was needed. Dragoon is under threat of dive. He's so low right now, too.
Yeah, he is going to get dropped. He tried to buy some time, send City Witty to the Shadow Realm, but Lamb's Respite will keep City Witty alive by an inch. 40 HP.
If that's comfort and that's like actual knowledge from City Witty, that's absurd. There's no way. There's no way he plans that right there. The cool part about that play that I thought was going to end things out was utilizing the Kindred ultimate as soon as the kill went through, because that meant that it dropped on the other side of the Death Realm, which means that it was going to work. Actually, bottom side, there's some more work going on. Actually dropping good damage into Scion, but it just stopped. Duo King's able to eliminate that with the Break of Vision, so that's good on Duo King again. Expressing some mastery on the Senna. But yeah, the thing that confused me was like him like getting out of his zone and barely not dying. Again, there's almost no way that he knew he was going to live with a couple of health points. There's no way.
I'm telling you.
City
Witty knows his way around it, man.
If he's that good, that's otherworldly, and he shouldn't be picking other champions.
There's 2 Kindred players that I would definitely refer to as being very comfortable in it. One is unfortunately has been eliminated from Maryville Saints, which is Kind Jungle. But then you look over here, City Witty knows the way around Kindred as well. I've witnessed many games where we've seen City Witty be able to carry on this champion, and City Witty's putting on that masterclass here. Unfortunately, Super Mega Death Rocket doesn't steal the dragon as City Witty moved out the way.
Yeah, and now we're in a place in this game where City Witty is feeling incredibly fed. Again, 100 CS at 12 minutes and 30 seconds, doing great in terms of farm of this jungler. Mid tower is on the threat of going down because of DNA's pushing power, and he's been all over with City Witty, just making sure that he was going to be able to play up against the Olaf effectively. they've really kind of taken it to the mid-jungle combination that City Witty or that Griffin and Blaze were able to work with in the previous game. And then you have the counter pick top lane Existence. He's going to continue to kind of pound on this. They just run at him underneath the tower. There just isn't a winning situation for no team across the map. I think they hands checked a few too many times, and now 13 minutes in, they've really put themselves at a deep handicap.
Yeah, we kind of talked about how hard it would be for Ginger to come back from a deficit, but no team also has the same issue for themselves. They do have the comeback factor of a Jinx. We've seen Jinx get excited and really pop off in fights, but you're having this amount an almost 10k lead. Legrain is the only person underneath this tower. Griffin has popped the ghost, is looking for a play. Duo King's going to be able to re-enter this, give a shield. Shuke is barely able to survive. That was a dive where 2 members barely survived from no team.
It's kind of incredible they're able to actually turn that into their own advantage really significantly. The Ginger Turmeric. I mean, you're playing against the Scion, who's this really tanky member on the side of this team, and you're diving him with multiple melee champions, or effectively melee champions. Jizuka tanked the tower first, which I think was a great idea to start with, but as soon as 2 tower shots come through, the Thresh is basically dead, and then you got an Olaf who, like, you can't pop Ragnarok anymore, otherwise you're going to have problems, and you don't really have the damage because you're not really that strong in this game, or at least not comparative to the previous game. Because of that, Ginger Turmeric punish elsewhere on the map. They're able to get mid-tower really easily with DNA, and nothing comes about from the bottom side push except for a couple of Bird Summoners from Duo King.
Oh, goodbye,
Griffin just getting
Sweet Prince,
wrecked.
good
Oh,
night.
No. And Blaze is on Moonstone, but man, you have missed the mark in that one. Like, this is no longer the most fearsome duo in the entire world. There's too much damage between City Witty and DNA to ever really take that pure 2-on-2, especially if Blaze isn't there first. And now, they're winning everywhere. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean, look at the turnabout inside this game. And look at what City Witty's doing. He is sitting at 8 stacks right now and is on a rampage, just decimating the HP bar of Thresh. This Scion is taking a victory lap. Looking to see if he catches Qualifier on the back end of it. But Ginger, I mean, we are just got to the 15-minute mark. There is an 11k lead for them.
Go way too far up in a game like this to be able to actually, like, come back if you're no team, because again, they aren't really drafting for pure team fight. They're drafting heavily for this mid-jungle combination to kind of take things over, and nothing has worked in their department. Travis, there's a train rolling through. I'm going to ask you to talk for a little while here so people don't have to hear the lovely train, but yeah, Ginger Turmeric, they're doing some really significant work. I'm expecting a very quick victory for them because the turnaround is going to be very fast.
Well, there's definitely a train coming, and I think the viewers can hear this train, and it is the Ginger Turmeric train, as they are really putting in all the stops, and it's really City Witty DNA really popping off inside of this game. They're doing a phenomenal job as a duo, and it's so interesting that this has been a game of the mid-jungle duo, right? We've seen Blaze, we've seen Griffin. Those two have been paired together very fantastically in game number 1. We flipped the script. DNA says, all right, I understand how you play into the Soraka matchup now. I understand I got the shove. I understand I can't let Olaf just run me down inside the laning phase. And all of a sudden, with that little bit of understanding in terms of how the duo matchup's going to work out, this squad goes back to their strengths. They felt out what no team has, and you can see it now. They're just zoning them out inside of their jungle. Pillars of fire coming in. Nobody from no team can get anywhere close to the action.
Really easy to try to set up around the map now, and especially with Shirley in their back pocket, they're up 13k. There's almost nothing that can be responded to. No team, like, what are they going to do to actually stop this outright? They can bring multiple members over, but that's the best they can do. And honestly, that's kind of what Ginger Turmeric wanted to do in the first place. If they cluster up, that's where the brand is really the strongest!
No, there it is! The bombs bouncing back and forth. The flame is too hot for them to be able to handle. The Scion is unstoppable coming on in. Dragoon finds DNA in the back end, but it's the damage already done. Soraka trying to heal up who they'll possibly be able to. Blaze trying to do a good job in regards to that Qualifier, shooting rockets from over the wall, completely untouched in the fight, but Existence is very strong still. Kindred DNA dropped off the map. Qualifier trying to kite this out. He's got a Scion in his face. The knockup channels through, and Qualifier is in a critical place. Existence will just take him and make him stare down the barrel and will find the kill. No team gets routed at their mid inhibitor.
And a couple of really, really like kind of crucial clutches from No Team. Make sure that this isn't just a kill shot immediately, like the bringing down of Brand, the ulting of him in the backline, Dragoon being able to find that pick, and now losing things together. Also, Blaze being able to separate from the rest of his team with the Brand ult on him was actually humongous for breaking up that initial engagement to make sure DNA doesn't just win the fight with one ability across the board, but it doesn't matter. They're still down 13, 14,000 gold. They're down 3 dragons now. All you have to do is wait for the next couple of minutes, and all of a sudden, Infernal Drake is in the back pocket of Ginger Turmeric. And how do you fight this team when they've got this much? They've got heal cuts, they've got health to work with, they've got big team fighting potential. You throw extra damage onto this team, and they don't need it, right? Like, they've got like and Kindred and Brand and Senna for the damage needs that they could ever possibly want, and yet they're still on the path to be able to grab up this Infernal Dragon for their 4th soul point, which comes through. That's just... Again, it's a position where it feels like No Team is slowly bleeding out, or actually not even slowly bleeding out. They're almost out of blood, and so we're just waiting again for that last tick to come through and for Ginger Turmeric to wrap this one up, because they are in just absolute command of everything.
I mean, look at the damage! They just chunked them to half HP. The Ragnarok comes in, lots of healing. The Super Mega Depper doesn't hit its mark, but still Existent makes it out alive. They get 2 kills. City Witty tracks down the 3rd, and No Team, they're looking for an aggressive play, but they cannot find the right one for them. Qualifier trying to make one last hero play. Existence, you were dropped down so low, but Duo King is coming in to give that supportive fire. Qualifier is the last remaining member besides Dragoon, gets dropped in the top lane.
So easy for them to be able to wrap things up. City Witty's pushing in a couple of different areas. The only thing preventing them from just outright winning a game at this point is death timers, because we're still before 20 minutes into the game, which is kind of astonishing how much they've been able to do, because it's 21-3 right now on the kill count. They themselves are over a kill per minute on average. Ginger Turmeric is just going completely crazy in this one. They've got 6 towers down again, 3 dragons to their back pocket. It's super easy to wrap up a game like this, which now begs the question, I suppose, if we're considering what happened to the game number 3, not even considering it, I'm just assuming that that's going to be true at this point unless No Team does something miraculous. What is it that they can do to actually turn things around? Because they stayed on this, or they swapped sides, obviously. They got a bit more counterpick prepared for a couple of members on their team. It's a situation where it feels like the comfort was what was missing from Ginger Turmeric in Game 1 to attack this combination from No Team. Perhaps they go more standard, they don't go Olaf Soraka, but then it begs the question again, if Ginger Turmeric were able to get themselves on comfort, City Witty's able to have a good performance at the beginning of the game, how are you supposed to combat it? What are you going to do to counteract what Ginger Turmeric's been able to bring to the table?
I think that's a good question to ask, in the fact of the matter of, like, the fact that No Team said, all right, we're rounding out our comp with the same strategy, Olaf Soraka. Let's see. It worked out beautifully last time. This time they're feeling the opposite effect. I think about this time of the game, Olaf was 7-1. This time the script has been flipped. It's 1-7 on the Olaf. So the attack came in. Ginger said, hey, you're going to run the same strategy? We've seen that you can't run the same trick against us twice. And you can see the punishment coming in here, Rebel. They're just constantly just putting the pressure on. The zoning is immaculate. Griffin drops again inside his jungle. He just wants Gromp, but Ginger looks like they're going to end the game mid. DNA gets a huge chunk of damage off. Qualifier is going to drop, is going to find himself falling. City Witty continues to follow up. A nice death sentence from the Thresh, but there's 3 members still alive, and Dragoon just trying to do his best effort to keep them inside this game for a little bit longer, but Ginger looking to wrap things up. Mordekaiser drops. Thresh is up next. That play won't save you. Griffin rejoins the fray, goes into Ragnarok, trying to see if he can add a blemish to the KDA of Duo King. But he remains a king on Senna, 5-0-10, and Ginger close out the match 21 minutes and 45 seconds in.
Absurdly good start to the game from Ginger Turmeric. And again, they aren't oftentimes seen as a very good early game team, but when City Witty is able to have a beginning of the game like that, they were able to take it so often. I do have to, again, put a little bit of blame towards the side of No Team for, again, there are a couple of times where they made some questionable fight decisions at the beginning of the game, maybe just assuming that their champions were a bit more powerful than they were. But again, honestly, it was solid punishment just from the side of Ginger Turmeric altogether. They were able to fight against that powerful duo that had ruined them in the game before, and I felt like they just across the board had actually better performances individually. Top lane went really well, bottom lane went spectacularly, weren't just getting pushed in by Ziggs for the entirety of the game. And now again, this leaves so many questions for game number 3, because that was 2 dominating wins back and back. The difference is that it was all of the bans and stuff that had come through from game 2 were really in favor of Ginger Turmeric. They're the ones walking in with momentum coming into game number 3.
You're absolutely correct. We are going to another 3-game series, 2 commanding games for both of these squads. We're going to go ahead and send it over to a break, and when we come back, our desk is going to get us prepared for game number 3, so be sure not to touch that browser.